Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome to Nutmegged, the podcast where Yank and a Brit talk about the beautiful game from across the pond. I am Andrew, representing the good old Stars and Stripes, and we have Faisal holding down the crown in the UK. Faisal, what is good?
I'm good. Happy New Year. It's 2024. I'm excited. I'm ready to get stuck into another episode, into another year. Good episode ready ahead.
Yes, we have a lot of good stuff, and that is right. Happy New Year to you, FaZe, and to all of the listeners out there, because it's officially 2024. That means I have to remember to write down 2024 on all the weird things that I write down 2024 on. I guess I'm not in school, so probably don't do that as much anymore. But the things we do have to cover that are already happening in 2024 and the things that have led up to this new year, we've got a lot of good stuff to talk about, including our New Year's resolutions for the soccer universe. We have some things coming your way. But before we do that, let's touch on some of the things that have been happening in the recent Premier League action. A lot of stuff, including my favorite thing. And I am so excited for this new year because of Manchester United getting a new 25% owner. And it is not a country. It is not a big oil magnate. It is just a dude that is rich, that runs Ineos, and he did get a lot of money from kind of oil-related things as well, but he's not a country, so I'm happy. This is the individual, the person that I wanted to start the takeover of Manchester United from the Glazers, our boy, Ratcliffe, taking over 25% of Manchester United. Also gets footballing operations control, which I'm very excited about because I know previous podcast episodes we've talked about how I hate the disorganization in the front office and the back office. I think that is the reason why Manchester United is struggling right now. But what's your take very quickly on Ratcliffe taking over 25%?
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited because it's obviously something, anything's better than fully Glazers, in my opinion, right? But yet again, as I mentioned right now, it is still Glazers. There's still some sort of, they've got some power in the place. They're still around the club, and I'm not massively happy about that. But for me, 25% is better than 0%. So I'm here for it. I'm still really looking forward to seeing what he's actually going to implement and what impact he'll have. I want to see impact at club level. I want to see impact at infrastructure level as well. And also I want to see impact at more from like a business level. I want to see operations really being improved. But this for me is like a new year. It feels refreshing to have something new and exciting happen for the club other than just football and whether Glazers are in or whether they're still here or whether they're out. So just some more clarity is useful for me now on the 24th of December, apparently as well, which is kind of important. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Undecided on how much of an impact it will have immediately right now for the time being. Ineos, that current connection with Nice aren't exactly flying at the moment. But where I want to put it is I'm feeling positive, and I'm looking forward to seeing what's happened and what's going to happen in the new year for it.
Yeah, I am stoked as well on the front where we're kicking out the Glazers slowly. I wish we could kick them out all at once, shove them to the curb, and lock the door so they can never get back in because I do hate them. And what they have done to the club is deplorable. And it's not how you run an organization. I could talk about the Glazers and how sucky they are as individuals for a very long time, but we won't do that because it's a new year. We're super stoked. Ratcliffe is coming in. And also,
positive, yeah.
Exactly. It's going to be good. The one thing we don't know, though, is what his deal looks like overall. However, there are a lot of speculations saying that Ratcliffe will have some type of deal in place where he can, over time, purchase more of the club because it does look like the Glazers want out. And we have talked about what a takeover with Ratcliffe will or potentially could look like in a previous episode. So you can go and check that out if you want a deep dive. But with all the positivity of Ratcliffe being a new figure kind of taking control of Manchester United, it hasn't looked too great, at least to start us off in this new year, simply because we lost to a team in the bottom of the bracket. Do you want to talk to us about our good friends over at Forest?
Yeah, I'm just going to tell you right now, this Manchester United team at the moment is such like a Jekyll and Hyde style of team at the moment. Performances have been the most inconsistent they've ever been, and it's the most uncertain I've ever been watching Manchester United as a club. Whatever team put in front of us, I feel either we're going to scrape a win or we're going to lose. There is no two ways about it. Back in the day, I felt, it's a team in the bottom half of the league, bottom three. we can see a 2-0 or a 3-0 here. I felt a bit more confident the past few seasons. I haven't. And then most recently, I honestly think it's like a flip of a coin at the moment. Honestly, some of the results that I can see. I mean, Champions League. Let's not even get into that. I mean, that's done and dusted. Terrible in itself. What happened there, I will never know. How many goals we scored, how many goals we conceded, just the whole debacle there. I'm not getting into that, but just thinking about we've taken on such a weird roller coaster situation. You've got that 0-0 against Liverpool. You're thinking, okay, solid, good, solid team. Not letting any goals in. I'm happy with that. I'll take that 0-0. But I could feel Liverpool fans around me thinking, oh, this is going to be a rollover. Oh, ready to be happy that Man United have lost again. And then we take a big tank. It's a 2-0 to West Ham. And that performance was really poor. I'm seeing really terrible stuff in that game. I'm thinking, and granted we're away, so I'm giving us the benefit of the doubt, thinking, okay, that's fair. We're at home. And then Villa, who we've talked about this already, are flying at the moment, right? Great performances overall. Us to be 2-0 down at halftime, I'm thinking, yeah, we're back to a normal basis here. We're just going to go worse and worse. Then come out and get back and score 3-2. I'm thinking, this is it now. And my mind is thinking, we're top four, comfortable now. We're beating Villa comfortably, who are flying. We're now going to be, hitting that top four situation. And then getting brought right back down to earth with this awful Forest 2-1 away, granted away, but still just the performance overall was terrible. They just wanted it more than us. There's players on that pitch and I'm just seeing walking. There's one point for the second goal, I think I'm seeing Evans and Varane marking the same guy. I'm just like, this is just basic 101 football. So very, very, very inconsistent at the moment. I actually don't know. I could call what's going to happen. But yeah, what do you think? Were you thinking top four still? Or are you thinking this is just, we're done this year already?
I think I'm still on my predictions from when we made our prediction episode of like what the table will look like before the season kicked off. I still think they will finish outside the top four, which I think I had them in fifth, which sounds honestly like something they would accept right now. Let's just take a quick look at the table. So Man United right now, they are in 8th position. That actually won't change, even though there are some games happening right now. I think it's just one game. It's West Ham and Brighton. But they sit right below both of those two teams. So Brighton in 7th, West Ham in 6th. Now, the issue is Man United, 31 points. Right above us, Brighton, 31 points. So that's good. So at least we're close to 7th. And then above them, West Ham at 34. So those are in range to be able to try to get some points and to move up the table. However, West Ham's form is looking immaculate. So that's kind of scary. Out of the last 5 games, they've lost 1 and won all the others. They're killing stuff, which is not what we are doing at Manchester United. The issue then is in 5th place is Tottenham at 39 points. So that's a pretty big gap. So we have to either pick up our form in an outstanding way, which I don't think will happen, or we have to have other people fall off, which I also don't think will happen. So really those top 5 positions, they're starting to create a little bit of a gap from below in the 6th and down positions. So I don't really know what that looks like. Personally, I would be happy with Manchester United getting a 5th place finish. I don't think it will happen. I am optimistic with the Ratcliffe takeover that his involvement will change the structure of the club and how things work, but it's going to take a little bit of time, especially as he takes over footballing operations, kind of learn what that means, gets his hands in things, kind of creates some more structure. I think that will ultimately be the thing that helps Manchester United, because it really looks like they're just running around with the wheels knocked off. The bus is floundering. No one really knows what to do, so hopefully that will change things, but I don't see that changing this season. Hopefully next season it will.
Let me just pose something to you, because we've not really discussed him too much. We've talked a lot about the players. We've talked about how their performances on the pitch not being great. But what are we thinking about Ten Hag so far? Number one, do we think he will last the season? Is my first question to you. Secondly, are you happy with some of the strategic decisions he's made, or is that is our inconsistencies down purely to him?
First off, I want to tell everyone out there that wants to see Ten Hag sacked that you're stupid, because every manager that comes into a club, they need a minimum of 3 years unless stupid things happen, like just absurd. He's a poor manager. He's doing poor things to the players, doesn't manage relationships right, and has like won no games. Okay, then at that point, like if you're a year and a half, 2 years in, I understand sack a manager. However, if you get someone like Ten Hag, who started off really well with his tenure, doing great things, and also has a good pedigree, and it seems like he has like a structure in mind of how he wants to play. Like, I like the vibe. He's much more of an authoritarian. I'm okay with that as long as he gets performances out of players, and that's what the players like and respond to. I'm cool with that. I just hate when everyone, including pundits in the soccer world, say, oh, it's time to start sacking this dude after a year and a half of him coaching a team that has no back-end structure, no organization. They bring in Casemiro, and that's like their statement signing. Mason Mount, another statement signing. Both of these players, like, have contributed a little bit, actually. Mason Mount has contributed nothing. But Casemiro has contributed a little bit, but you can't like use him as your cornerstone. Mason Mount also not like a cornerstone player. You can't really build a team around him. So I am of the camp of saying he needs to stay longer. I think he's a good manager, and I hope that he does. To answer your question, if he will stay, I don't think so, because the more drama that everyone can create usually ends up helping shove managers out the door. So I wish he would stay. I don't think he would stay just because of all of the media storm that ends up helping push managers out the door. I also think the other thing with new like football management things coming into place with Ineos and Ratcliffe, I've heard that he has preferences of some different managers, so that could influence some things too. I think he likes Porter, which I would understand. I think he's a good manager too. I think overall he should stay. I'd be happy with Porter, but I really would like to see Ten Hag in the driver's seat for the next couple of years and give him a chance, because I think he's a good manager.
You mean Graham Potter, right?
What did I say? Porter?
Porter.
I don't even know. Caleb Porter. That's what I'm thinking of. Former Columbus Crew manager. Yes, Graham. Our boy Graham Potter. I think Graham Potter's a good manager.
I'm totally agreeing with you as well. I feel like this whole media storm will unfortunately basically take Ten Hag down. I'm with you. I think that give him time. But not to say I've watched some performances and gone, get this guy out. I'm just going to throw that out there. I just feel like I've seen sometimes I'm like, I've seen him around on the touchline and he's just not giving anything. He's bringing out players. He's still starting like some Anthony. No, I think I saw a stat, no assists, no goals in the 100 and something minute, 109 minutes or whatever it is of football. Like, it's just really not there. Like 909 minutes. It's something about 9 minutes related, right? I'm just seeing some really poor figures and stats, and I'm thinking that is due to the manager, right? But at the same time, I agree that you need to give him time. I don't think this season will be successful in any shape or form. I agree. I don't think we're hitting top four. I don't think we are even going to get any kind of cup. I mean, we're playing Wigan on Sunday, I think it is. I mean, I probably lose to that. Like, there's certain teams, certain games I don't think they work. But Ten Hag, does he last the season? My guess is yes. I think he does last the season. I think he'll get to that point where we'll get a bit of a run of games. You know, I feel like you need to see a sharp decline of like performances. And I feel that Villa performance might have got him a little bit time, and he needs maybe one or two of those in maybe 6 games, 2 or 3, like in those games, because of our inconsistencies. The fact we've got many injuries at the moment buys him more time. And I think that will basically buy him more time until the end of the season, where we come in, we're probably about 6, potentially, no cups, no nothing. And we're going to be like, well done, we move for next season. I think it's kind of what's going to happen. But yeah.
I mean, like, look at the roster, though. I get, like, the argument that he would have. So, like, let's say at the end of the season, he makes it there. I hope so. And then there's the meeting with the management structure, and Ten Hag sits down, and they say, yo, Ten Hag, what happened this season? Why was it so sucky? Ten Hag can certainly say, okay, first off, look at my roster. One, it's just like a mishmash of players. Some of those I wanted to bring in and didn't work out. I get that. That happens with every club. But overall, like, I have really no structure that I can build a team around. Like, maybe Rashford, but the players that were brought in are certainly not catering to build around Rashford's playing style, which I still believe that Rashford can be like the cornerstone of a club. And he could be for Manchester United, and he's from Manchester. It just makes sense. It's a perfect storyline. Then continuing on and saying, look at the injuries that had happened. Oh my gosh. I mean, I lost some of the core players that we did bring in, and some core players that actually could make a difference. I have to have Evans as my starting center back all the time, which, like, he can be a key player, of course, but like to start him 24/7 doesn't really make sense. So I'm trying to gel this team together, but with injuries and like the weird signings and structure that was already created by like what, 4 managers like in the past 5 years. Like, come on, I'm just trying to create something. I've had a year and a half to do that. It just doesn't make sense for me to have the results that you expect at this moment. But I am excited because now of this new structure. If I can align with Ratcliffe and Ineos and the structure that you guys build, I think we can do something great. I think that's how the conversation should go with Ten Hag. And I hope the management accepts that, because really he's not in a great place.
But moving forward in terms of which club is currently in a good place at the moment, if we just mentioned a bit about the Premier League at the moment and way that's shaping up for Manchester United, we've ended the year. We're on a brand new year now, and midway through the season, we're just going to have a little look back at the current state of play. Number one, I'm just going to drop in the club that you were backing comfortably to hit in top four. In fact, you predicted they'd win the league, right? Was that what you were thinking?
Liverpool, baby, still on it.
They're there. Bit of a rocky beginning to the season, a couple of draws in there, and we're thinking, what's going on here? They're currently top of the Premier League. They are on 45 points in the moment, closely followed by a bit of not necessarily a shock, because they've been putting in performances, right? Let's be honest. And I mentioned earlier as well, is Aston Villa really on 42, so just 3 points behind. I mean, that is incredible for a club that hasn't really had those ambitions, right? They're hitting for that top four. I think, granted, if you gave them, European football in any capacity with a Europa League, they'd be very happy with them. They're in Europa League this season. So maybe there was that kind of like, you know what, our ambitions are, let's just hit top six. And they're in this place now and hitting that top two, fighting for that first place. Do we see them going all the way? I don't 100% sure.
But the cool part about that is like that just goes to show you, if you structure a club the right way with a good front and back office management structure, as well as good players, like maybe not top tier world class players, but like a handful of very solid players, as well as key role players and solid management, you can have a good team that can make a huge impact. And then if you end up finishing top four, the money does so much for a team like that, because you can get more good role players. You can even bring in one single star, and then that just makes a huge difference. And then you can really start making impact and sitting at the top of the table for years to come, at least in those top four positions. So it just is a perfect example of how to like run a club as an organization.
One day we will get back to that space. And then in third position here, we got Manchester City. What are you making of Manchester City's performance at the moment? Like, if I was a Man City fan, I mean, me saying that makes me skin crawl, but if I was a Manchester City fan, should I be worried?
I would not be worried, because if you are in this position to hunt for not only a top four position, but like the top position being 5 points off of that, I'm in a happy spot, because you do know that in previous seasons, Manchester City, they've had some rocky times earlier on in the season, and then end up like just kicking into second gear and then gliding up toward the top and making it at least competitive, if not competitive, by ending up sweeping the rest of the way home and claiming that league title. So I would not be worried. So Manchester City fans, I don't know why you selected that as your team to support. I will never understand, and I feel sorry for you, but I would not be worried if I were you sitting in your light powder baby blue kits. With that being said, another reason for that, like, you've had some pretty rough injuries. Some core teams have had some pretty rough injuries. So both Manchester teams suffering from that, but City as well. And like your corner piece, like Kevin De Bruyne is like one of the best players in the world. And to lose a player like that and to still compete the way that they have been, I think is great. So I would not be worried, unfortunately.
I also think this is testimony to squad depth. The fact that City are currently in third place, right? And they're currently on 40 points. They're 5 away from top. I mean, that in itself, people like Liverpool and Villa will potentially slip up along the way. So that's kind of potentially guaranteed at some point in the season. But if you look at the squad depth, they haven't got Kevin De Bruyne, who's coming back, who's yet to come back, and they're still comfortably a better team than Manchester United and the likes of like Spurs and Arsenal, etc. Right, these sorts of teams which have potentially got more of like a full strength or better squad in those kind of in terms of where they're at in the league at the moment. And then you've got Haaland who's got a bit of an injury, yet there's still scoring goals. They've got goals coming out from Grealish, for example. Nando Silva still scoring. Alvarez, World Cup winner Alvarez scoring goals. Foden, like in that previous game, was just amazing. Like so good on the ball, right? So these sorts of performances these players are putting in, they've still got putting the club in this position. I almost feel now, if I was any other club, I would be scared personally, because you've still got players to come back. Haaland isn't even playing, you're still cruising games, right? And you're in a comfortable position to see any of the top two slip. There isn't enough, in my opinion, Villa and Liverpool. There's not enough pressure from them, if you were a City fan, to think, yeah, they're going to run away with it. You don't see Liverpool and Aston Villa running away with nothing, right? City, you do. And this moment in time, they've still got an opportunity to just chip away at it. They're the sort of people that can keep their heads down. They're the sort of club, and Pep Guardiola is the sort of manager that they're just going to keep their head down, work on it, get in, game out, and then they're going to get to a point in about 2 or 3 game weeks, maybe 3 game weeks, for example, end of January, start of Feb, KDB back, Haaland back, and they're just going to be routing teams like 5-0, 4-0 comfortably. Foden on the left, you've got Grealish coming. Like these players will then just, and that's when you'll see City just chip away and get to that number one. So yeah, I'm with you. I would not be worried either.
Yep, I would not be worried. However, there is a team right below them that might want to be worried. One of the contenders against City last year, Arsenal, also sitting on 40 points. Pretty strong start to the season. A lot of their players I had in my fantasy team because they were just kicking butt all the time. Now they've slowly left my squad because they've not been performing as well. So for you, what does Arsenal's season look like now that the gas pedal is just not pressed down as far? They're stuttering a little bit. What does that look like for you?
I think this proves really, and this I thought about this the other day as well, thinking about the fact that Arsenal were contenders for the Premier League. Would they've ever won it? Do I see them winning it? I personally don't see them, and I think that's mainly because my opinion. You might massively disagree with me here, but I feel like Arsenal do not have any, in my opinion, world class players. There's no one in that squad that I think, maybe barring maybe Saka potentially, and maybe not even Odegaard. I think there's better players in midfield in City squad, right? That make those clubs, right? If you look at all that, their midfield and their centre backs, for example, none of those players are really like world class players, and I think that's their problem. Potentially, will be their problem for a couple of seasons until they have a player or a couple of players that are really pushes them to that level. I think they'll probably comfortably make top 4. I don't think they'll be contending. And I don't think they'll be contending for a couple of seasons anyway. And I think this clip may be clipped after a while and have me being like, what's he thinking? What is he saying right now? And in the comments, he's going to go nuts. Like, do you still believe that, etc. But I'm just thinking, I just feel, and what if you're an Arsenal fan and you're in like comments or whatever it is, and you're thinking, I massively disagree. Like, tell me give me like 5 or 3 or 4 or 5 world class players in that team. There isn't. City have world class players. Right, Man United, when they won the leagues, right, the likes of, for example, like Cristiano Ronaldo, Wayne Rooney, these are world-class players. There isn't many players in that squad that I can think of. For example, you look at the Chelsea squad, that one as well. Didier Drogba, world-class player. These players, were bringing forward. So, I mean, that's just my opinion, though. I mean, do you see world-class players in that squad? That's just my opinion.
I don't necessarily think they need the world-class player structure that you have with City. So City just has stupid money coming from the Middle East that can ultimately just get pumped in wherever they want it to be because the Premier League doesn't care and they only care about punishing Everton, which we'll talk about in a little bit. However, I don't think Arsenal needs that structure, and I don't think any team needs that structure. And what I had just talked about, how to actually like build a sustainable club with Aston Villa, I think that via Villa, my American accent, Villa, I think that Villa, they have created it appropriately, and they don't have really world-class players. I think Arsenal has more world-class players than Villa does. So with that being said, I think the way that Arsenal are structuring things, you're right. I wouldn't say that they have star power players other than Saka, for sure. I would think Odegaard maybe starts to get into that conversation as well, maybe like a few notches just away. Maybe he's knocking on the door. But I will say, they have enough talent and high quality players in role positions. So think your Odegaards, think your Sakas, think your Rice now as well. Those 3 core players, and then add in those role players all around them. I think they have a squad that can absolutely compete for the top spot. The one thing I would say is I think they maybe need a few more role players that are a little higher quality to really compete with like the likes of some of the top 6 teams. So that is my issue. But other than that, I really do think that they have a nice looking squad, and I like Saka a lot, and I wish that he would be the star boy for my fantasy team. So keep getting me some points there, buddy, please.
I'm just going to run you through a couple of players, right? So this is City's squad here. These are what I think personally world class players. You've got Erling Haaland. I mean, given world class player personally, right? That's clear. I mean, Phil Foden, I would argue, is pretty world class as a player. He makes into most squads in the world. There's not many squads he doesn't make it into. So Phil Foden, Kevin De Bruyne, that's a given, right? I mean, potentially Rodri, I think, is probably world class. There's not many better defensive midfielders, and that shows, right? And then you've got the likes of Ruben Dias, who I think is one of the Premier League's best defenders, and Guardiola, for example, who was from the previous World Cup, was one of the best players. And then you've got Edison, who again is probably world class keeper. These are world class players, I think, you don't have with the likes of Arsenal, right? Now I'm just going to run you through, right? This is what becomes my issue about potentially those kind of winning, those clubs that I think are potentially going to be winning those areas, right? So I'm looking at Arsenal squad. Their keepers, there's not one keeper that's world class, right? And they're swapping anyway, so there isn't really that many things, right? Saliba potentially is probably maybe up there. There's probably one player. No one else in that defense is world class or any way even good it makes into any squad. Midfielders, genuinely, there isn't anybody. I mean, Declan Rice is okay, but I don't think. I mean, okay, granted, okay, he's very, very good and a great defender, good midfielder. But again, no one else really in that space. And then I can't. I mean, aside from Saka, who's probably up there, there is nobody else. That team for me doesn't win the Premier League, but the team I just read out, City, does, right? These sorts of players, even Liverpool's got some players. I mean, Salah, for example, Trent Alexander-Arnold, I think is world class. So these players, I think, will still have opportunities. But hey, that's just my rant on it. And I like Arsenal as a squad, and I do think they'll do really well. I just don't think they have a squad good enough with enough world class players to win the league like previous league winners do.
I think I agree. And I will say you can build your team one of 2 ways to win the league, maybe 3. You can get lucky by having a Leicester type of situation where everything just falls into place for you and you end up winning the league. That is an anomaly, not going to happen very, very often. The 2 ways that you absolutely can build and structure for is 1, have a team like City, get a ton of money from somewhere, and then just buy the best players. That will usually get you results, unless you're Manchester United, because they don't have a structure. As long as you have a structure in place, that will work. So that's one option. And some teams do that, like your cities. Liverpool is kind of competing in that realm. The other one is to go Villa's route and say, okay, we'll get some good players like what Arsenal have, and then filter in players around them that make sense in that specific system that you're trying to play. And I think maybe Arsenal wanted to go the big spending route, but then maybe realize, oh, that's just not going to work for us because that's too much money, and then the system that we've created isn't right. So then let's try to create the Villa system and plug in some of those really good role players. If you go that route, though, you have to have more depth. And again, I think that's what Arsenal is missing to be able to compete for that top spot. So they have to create a little bit more, but I think they're right on the cusp of doing that. So that's exciting. And I think Liverpool in the same situation, they're right on the cusp with competing like for like with Manchester City. So I think for the next few years, we're going to be seeing some exciting top of the table races. But with that all being said, this is going to be a big year in the world of soccer for many reasons, including the Euros, which I'm sure as an English boy, you are quite excited about. So do you want to talk to me about the lovely year ahead?
Yeah, of course. I was looking at this. Obviously, we're in year 2024. Overall, sport it's all you think about when the start of the year. You're thinking, what sport am I going to be watching this year? And it's going to be a jam-packed year this year. So we have the Euros, as you mentioned. I mean, we had the World Cup. I think it was the year before, previous year. It felt weird saying previous year, but technically the year after, 2022, which was incredible. And we'll get into if you want to relive that in a second. So obviously we've got the Euros coming in. Also, on top of that, we have the Olympics taking place as well this year, which we all know it's going to be fun. There's going to be lots and lots of great drama in that, and like watching countries perform and really being pushed to the limit in those areas. We love to see it, and that's going to be Olympics. And on top of that, we have as well the T20 World Cup as well, which is going to be amazing. Now, T20, I'm referring to here cricket for the football fans among us, and also potentially people that have never heard or how to play cricket. It is, in my opinion, the best format of cricket. Very quick games, big hitting, big sixes, lots of wickets, lots of runs. And it's taking place in a country that, Andrew, you know a little bit about. So, T20 in the US. How are you feeling about that?
I'm excited. I like absolutely know zero things about cricket. So I'm excited to like get that more into the media space because like cricket is not talked about much at all in the US. So I'm looking forward to like having that a little bit more on our broadcast streams, being more aware of it. I think that will be pretty sweet. So I'm excited for more sports that are not necessarily covered in the US to be covered a little bit more. So that'll be pretty fun.
That'd be great. And I think US will do a really good job of it. And I think it'd be lovely to see cricket played in a place where you just don't see cricket at all being played. And I think I was looking at some articles about you. I genuinely think it will really bring cricket to a whole different dimension in terms of, and it's the right in terms of like how you have people from the US understanding how to play the game, learning the game, for example, watching some of the world's best players coming to the US. I think that'll be really exciting. But on top of as well, thinking about like the article I was reading as well, I think it will really have an impact on like more and more cricket becoming more and more mainstream in these areas and really like putting it out to the areas that I think will be useful for as well. Back to Olympics for a second as well. Paris. I mean, does it get better than Paris Olympics? That's going to be amazing. You're an Olympian going to spend some time in Paris and to perform in those areas. I think it'll just be stunning to do that. And of course, you've got the Euros, as I mentioned as well. And that's going to be around Germany as well. So that'll be really interesting to see how Germany bounce back off the back of their round of 16, lost, didn't get through, which was interesting as well. Speaking of the World Cup, I want to throw back to you. Have you not watched the Netflix documentary called Captain of the World?
I have absolutely not seen that, but you have recommended it to me. So I am very excited to learn more about this.
And you need to watch it. Our listeners 100% need to watch it. It is incredible series. It basically take place during the World Cup. It is like a documentary speaking to the captains of the World Cup teams. It goes through the drama from Argentina losing to Saudi Arabia in the first game. It goes through all the round of 16 to the penalties. It's filmed really well. It goes behind the scenes. It's got the captains talking, great interviews from the captains. It's got interviews with the man himself, Messi, with Ronaldo, and it lines up such a really good place to be like, you want to relive how it was, that World Cup, that December World Cup that we were all part of. Great, really, really great watch. And very interesting just to learn about politics, about what the captains really felt about talking about key political elements as well. So definitely 100% worth a watch. It came out December 30th, I think. I think 6 episodes long. Definitely check it out. Loved it.
I plan to binge watch it right after this. And we live in such a beautiful time where all of these awesome documentaries, series, shows are coming out about like the soccer universe. And I am absolutely here for it. I will always like credit, what is it, Sunderland? Something, We Are Sunderland or something like that?
Sunderland. We Are Sunderland.
That documentary that docu-series was so good. I wish they made more of it. I've heard rumors that they are going to make another season or something like that in the future, but it's so good. And that's like what got me into like, whoa, there's this world of all these interesting, like real factual soccer stories that are being told. So I love that we live in a time that all these clubs and organizations want to do this. So that is what I'm going to be doing right after this. So thank you very much. With talking in like the Olympics, the World Cup, all that kind of stuff, I have a question that actually you asked me, and you wanted to hear my 2024 prediction that no one else will be predicting. So I'm going to hit you with mine because it's related to all the big events that are happening in the world of soccer at the moment. And then after we have this discussion, which you'll probably fall off your chair at my prediction, I'm curious to hear yours as well. So my prediction for 2024 that no other person will predict is for the Euros. So in the Euros, my prediction is for the winner of said competition. And winner of said competition will be Hungary. That is my prediction. There are many big teams. Yes, many big teams in play for this. Of course, England may or may not be a favorite, depending on who you ask. And if you ask an English individual, they may be getting too nervous to actually agree to that. But my take is that Hungary, kind of always a dark horse in competitions, usually perform like fairly well, like a respectable performance for a country that it doesn't usually have a lot of expectation in terms of a soccer type of background. What I have seen on their roster is kind of like a build, which you can't really build your own international roster, of course, as you know, but like the structure kind of looks like the Villa roster in a way that it's been created around a couple of really solid players, and then they have good role players that filter into that as well. Like I said, it's going to look different for international teams because you kind of have to develop your own talent in certain ways. But I think that they are going to be a dark horse for this competition, and we're going to have some wild action. And I will say that my prediction that no one else is going to predict is that Hungary will take the cake.
That is, I mean, it would be incredible to see. And that, I think, is 100% something that no one will see coming. I mean, it would be so. Can you imagine how exciting? I mean, as an England fan, that sounds scary, but at the same time, I would love to see it. I mean, if we don't win it, Hungary wins it. I'm here now. I'm following Hungary in the Euros. They're gonna be my second team. That's me. It's given now.
I mean, Soboslai, he's going to have to carry a lot of the weight, which hopefully he does. He is a beautiful man on the pitch and just when he's walking around. So hopefully he can handle the big burden. But yes, I am pulling for Hungary. And if I am able to pull this off, I expect them to bring me into their like media team or their coaching staff in some way in the future, because Hungary, I love you and congratulations on the Euro.
I love that. That is definitely something that no one will see coming. I actually had two. I was going to go for two. Let me just go for the first one here, and I think this will be an interesting one. I mean, I think slightly. I mean, do you know what? It's going to be controversial here, and I think maybe because Newcastle aren't performing too well, and I don't think maybe we'll see. I don't think Eddie Howe lasts till the end of the season. Now, obviously, I think they're up and down at the moment. They are still performing. They're in the competitions. You know, they're still getting to that place. But I don't think Eddie Howe makes end of the season, which I don't think is massively shocking because I think they're tailing off a lot at the moment. But I just feel like for a club like Newcastle to do that, that happens the next couple of weeks, you would be shocked because of the performances. I feel like he's got a lot of grace period. He's got a lot of time. He's brought them back in the Champions League, and I feel like it would be very, very hasty and a little bit shocking for them to, at some point, even if it is to cut him at the end of the season. I don't see that. I think that would be quite a bit of a shock for me personally. And the next thing, I mean, yours is very shocking. It's thrown me a bit because mine sound pale in comparison. My other one was going to be potentially, and this is actually a little bit more shocking. I think Chelsea make top four.
That's insane.
I honestly see it happening. And the reason I say that is because once players come back, when Nkunku starts scoring again, Cole Palmer is firing on all cylinders, they have a squad that can get them into that place. Don't think they win it will go top three. I think they get fourth place. But I think just watch them this season, and I feel they're going to get into a good run. And that's what my second one's going to be. It's not as dramatic as yours, but I still see it. I'm predicting it. No one doesn't see it coming. Chelsea top four.
I think that Chelsea one is just as spicy as my Hungary one. If I was a betting man, I would probably place more bets on Hungary than I would Chelsea because I do not I do not feel positive for Chelsea. So I made my predictions at the beginning of the Premier League season. I said Chelsea would be in the top four. I thought they were going to have a resurgence. I thought they were going to figure out the back end structure, which kind of the similar issues to Manchester United. The organization under Bowley was questionable. I thought they were going to have that kind of ironed out or getting it ironed out toward the beginning of the season. And then they have the pieces necessary to be a good team. They have a lot of good players. but it just really hasn't happened. It hasn't flowed. The organization wasn't created in the appropriate way. And then the players just still don't seem to have the right type of structure in place for them to perform well. I don't know if that Poch's fault. I don't know if that is like the back end staff's fault, if that prevents Poch from doing things that he wants, or maybe it's just not the right players that Poch would want to have in his squad for the type of situation that he is trying to create. So I was expecting big things. Watching them play, I still don't think they have it together. I think they're a couple steps ahead of Manchester United in getting back to that spot. So I feel like still having them at the top half of the table makes sense, even though it's still a little scary at times for them because they are sitting at 10th with 28 points. But I don't think that I see them getting in top four. So that is a pretty shocking one to me. But hey, if they can pull that off, then that's going to be a miracle for them. And then you should be able to be on the team bus for every drive after that.
Or the fact that Manchester United might get relegated this season. That's probably more likely than Chelsea in top four.
Yeah. Not looking too hot for our Red Devils, unfortunately. Those are some quite dramatic predictions for 2024. So listeners, if you have some predictions that you believe with your full heart that will happen, that not many people agree with you, hit us up on Instagram. We would love to hear your predictions, and then we'll feature them in the show coming up as well. So feel free to hit us up there in the comments or in a DM. Now, talking predictions, sort of, we have some New Year's resolutions for the soccer universe. And these are essentially coming from us as an individual, giving out resolutions to maybe a player. It could be a club, could be an organization, could be some specific soccer theme related. So that is now what we are jumping into. And FaZe, I'm going to flip it to you first to hear your first resolution for the soccer universe.
Yeah, of course. So this is an interesting one where you can set this across for me to have a think about. There's a lot going on in the soccer world, and I said soccer there. That felt weird. I'm gonna have to retract mentally.
Attaboy.
After it's happening. It's happening. It could happen. It really could happen in the football world. So my one is more to do with. I think at the moment it's kind of referring back to what's happened at the moment in terms of the Christmas period, in terms of where we were football wise. I was saying earlier as well, it felt like every 2 days there was a game. And I know Klopp has talked about this, and we know, I mean, as a football fan, you should be very like, we love just football every 2 days. You're at home, you're eating loads of chocolates. It's football's on the TV on a regular basis. Boxing Day, New Year's Eve, Christmas, like it just feels like there's loads and loads of football on TV. But I just genuinely think, from like a health and well-being specific area for footballers, I think genuinely there needs to be, and also look from an injuries perspective as well. And I'm sure there's some crazy figures and stats about how many football injuries take place during this time period. There's no rest period at all for any club in the top two, three leagues, championship included. There were some games taking place on like Christmas Eve. I think it was some New Year's Day games. It's just like, that's a bank holiday for here in the UK. Yet there's games. That's like going into work on a New Year's Day, on a bank holiday. Like there's so many games around the corner. So one of my resolutions in that space would be to really think a lot more carefully and kind of go, do you know what? Let's rethink about the number of games this season. Let's try and limit that for the next season, for this year as well, to think about the new season and make it thinking a bit more about putting welfare of footballers first and limiting the number of games at the end of the season, end of the year, would be mine. And that was my resolution to just football in general. The Premier League in general would be to limit the number of games. I know Klopp is probably thanking me somewhere listening to this, obviously. But yeah, that'll be mine. I'm going to flip back to yourself.
I agree with your resolution. I would love to see that happen. However, I don't ever think it will, because football, like the rest of things in this world, are all about money. And the more games you can play, the more competitions you have, the more money you get. And that's the same issue here in the US. We're having a congested schedule with more and more competitions pumping out because more people want to pump money into their pockets. Quite unfortunate. But yes, let me give you a resolution. Unfortunately, this one is not as happy, but I like the poophousery that is associated with this. So we all know about Everton and their 10-point deduction. So my New Year's resolution is for Everton, and it is to keep shaming the Premier League for that 10-point deduction. So that was huge news that happened like a month or so ago, getting 10 points deducted. because of some fair play financial rules. And I'm going to break it down really quickly for you. But Everton specifically has been shaming the Premier League for the decision, with planes flying above the Emirates Stadium, like poking some phrases at Manchester City, saying that they cheated. How did we get screwed out of this? Then they also have fans holding up signs and saying the Premier League is corrupt at home games. Like, that is awesome. So I am here for all of that. So Everton cited a loss of £150 million in the last 3 seasons. So, however, the reason that they got this point deduction is because the Premier League said that the losses were actually £124.5 million. So, like, almost £20 million off. So there were some different accounting methods that were used. That's how Everton had kind of explained it, but the Premier League said, no, this is just too sketchy. So that's why they got that 10-point deduction for that financial structuring after the Premier League had a panel and reviewed everything, which Everton have appealed, by the way, and that appeal process is still being worked on. So now, how is that different from City? Because Everton get 10-point deduction. So City has 115 cases of this financial fair play type of thing that they have abused, apparently. So does that mean they like lose over 1,000 points? Because are they going to get 10 points deducted for each one? Probably not. So this is a weird situation, though. So City are accused of flat out cheating with some of their 115 profit and sustainability rule changes. So that's what that like specific financial thing is called, the profit and sustainability rules. So the charges are a bit different, though, because Everton essentially said, hey, we did this the right way. It's just like a difference in how you interpret it. However, Cities was like, oh, we did this a different way and we knew it was bad, but we did it that way anyway. So as a perfect example is like, it's the difference between getting caught speeding and then getting caught speeding with some sort of like radar jamming device in your car that allowed you to speed without getting caught. So obviously City, the more sketchy of the two situations. So what will the Premier League do to punish City, who will have allegedly done worse things than Everton? Will the Premier League actually equate what they punished Everton for what City has done, which City stuff looks a lot worse and they have a lot more cases? Who knows? It's the Premier League. As we just talked about, everything is about money in soccer, so maybe not. But what I want is for New Year's is to see Everton keep shaming the Premier League.
Great. The one thing I was going to flag as well was 115 charges is crazy.
Ridiculous. How do you even do that many things?
And how are you still playing football and still comfortably winning leagues?
Right.
It just doesn't... I mean, yes, I'm a little bit biased, but I just feel like, even you don't mean to be biased, from a neutral football perspective, 115 charges is crazy, and honestly, something needs to be done there. That should needs to be a New Year's resolution. That should just be a campaign for just everybody just to go out there and just be like, what is happening? We should get banners and just head out to the City Stadium and just be like, what's happening here? Because this is ridiculous. My next one, it's kind of fresh news. It's a fresh rumor that's been happening at the moment, but I think it's time. Jadon Sancho, and this one specifically for Jadon Sancho, and it's a New Year's resolution for you, and it would be, honestly, for your own safety and security in yourself, etc. Is just, I would, if I were you, I would leave Manchester United. I think it's time. Don't go on loan. There's been stuff at the moment which I've come out in the news recently about them. Borussia Dortmund, who he obviously flying at Borussia Dortmund, and Manchester United bought him. That's what really brought him into the Manchester United squad. There's potential of him being loaned out to them and coming back next season. I mean, I can see what they're trying to see him as a solid player, but 350k a week or 250k a week, for example, I think it's 350k, right? Sitting there, not saying, or apparently, I mean, well, let's just be reasonable about the media, etc. But not just because he's not apologizing to Ten Hag. I think there's more to it than that. But then there's that side of stuff. Just the bad relationship with the manager, not playing no football, not even being injured. Like, you're literally rotting in, not even on the bench. You're not on any bench. You're just sitting at home. And I doubt he's watching any Manchester United games. I think it's time. So my resolution for Jadon Sancho would be, honestly, as much as I love him as a player and when he's flying, he's great, I would like pack your bags, unfortunately, and leave Manchester United for yourself, and keep him moving and move to another club, preferably outside the top 6. Let's be reasonable now. And yeah, bring your best form out, come back and kill it for England in the Euros, but just Manchester United, I don't think it's for you anymore.
Yeah, I second that resolution because he's just wasting our money, our time, and is on our books. So, yeah, just go somewhere else and then be happy, dude. I mean, I'm not a fan of when players go against a manager unless it's for like a legit reason, which I've not seen any evidence to suggest that Ten Hag did anything out of the ordinary or out of place. He's just a very authoritarian manager, which is okay. And if you go against him in like a non-normal way, or if you just don't want to practice hard, or if he says something rude to you and then you go out in social media, like I'm not a fan of that. So I am much more in the Ten Hag camp, and I second this resolution. My second one, is also for an individual player, and this player is for Luca Koleosho, a player that not too many people have heard of unless you are a fan of the U.S. men's national team or a fan of Burnley. So he is a player for Burnley, and he has the option to play for 4 different nationalities. He has to select one, is not tied to any yet. So my resolution is for Luca Koleosho to finally come home and play for the red, white, and blue, represent the U.S. men's national team in the world of football. Please do so. And this is because there are rumors that he has been thinking about doing so. He is still young. I think he might be under 20. So he still is trying to figure out what national team he wants to represent. But Berhalter, U.S. men's national team coach, has said he's had regular contact with the player, which is quite promising. And he was born in the USA. He was born in Connecticut. So it is his actual home, his birthright. But he's playing with the Italy's U19s most recently. So Italy has brought him in, given him some hugs, and he did originally, though, feature with the U.S. men's national team as early as the U15s. So he's played for both sides. So he's gotten a taste, which is good. Go out, explore what you want to do like the Amish thing, the Rumspringa. You go out from your home and experience the real world. That's fine. Do all of that, but we want you to come home. And like I mentioned, he plays for Burnley, which conveniently, one of Burnley's biggest owners is J.J. Watt, former NFL superstar. And of course, home is the U.S. for him as well. And he is open to helping bring Koleosho to play for the United States, having conversations with him. And like as a former athlete, makes sense to have those conversations, which I think is awesome. And not only is J.J. Watt a part of this conversation, but J.J. Watt is conveniently married to Kaylee Ohai. I think that's how I say her last name. She is a former NWSL player here in the Women's League in the U.S., as well as a U.S. women's national team player. She's made a few appearances there. So a lot of good connections with the USA, with athletics here in the U.S. He's a great player with a lot of potential. I think he can be a big difference maker for the U.S. that will really make us competitive in 2026, that World Cup, where we're hosting along with Canada and Mexico. And that could be the World Cup where we actually make a big impact. So we shall see. So my resolution is Koleosho, come home, baby.
Nice. I like that. I felt really educated in the US sport there. I mean, I never heard of the player. So it's really interesting to see about that side of the stuff. I mean, love it. Love it. Bring him home. I'm with that. Bring him home.
Bring it home, baby.
My last one is going to be another one for the Premier League and probably for the world of sport more generally as well. I think we've discussed a little bit more about that. I think about players of color in particular, but also more in from women's sport getting more kind of highlighted, and also the fact that women's, specifically the Euros performances that England women's did, and also more generally the power and the presence of women's football. Mary Earps won, the BBC Personality of the Year, so that there's some headway being made in the world of sport from that area, which is really great to see. But one area I feel that's really lacking, and this is more resolution, more generally for football in general, is during refereeing and officials in general at the moment. I think a lot more needs to be done, and one of the resolutions I would love to kind of see, and it's, I suppose, it would get in there, but more needs to be done this year. So Sam Allison became the first Black Premier League referee since 2008. 2008. I mean, that says a lot in itself, right? And I think that shows that we're making some headway, because the fact that since 2008, there's a lot more needs to be done. So that was kind of my first one from that perspective. I think more needs to be done from that area. And my second one was relating it to, as I mentioned previously as well, in terms of the women's sport. Rebecca Welch has become the first woman to referee a Premier League match. She paving the way for officials to break into the men's game. I would love to see more of that, whether that would be at referee level, whether that would potentially be more women in the men's game, potentially as could there be a women's manager potentially in the men's game in the Premier League? That would be fantastic to see. That probably should be one of my predictions. The no one sees coming, but I don't see that coming this year. That's my thing. But I would love to see that. So my resolution would be to the Premier League, to the officials in general, and also the Championship and football in general, grassroots football. Let's get more people of color and let's get more women refereeing and officiating games. Let's do that. Let's make them more steps. Let's create those programs. Let's give more support. Let's enable those people. Let's enable more diversity in general to come to the top level of officiating at football across all levels of the world. So that'll be my final resolution. Over to you.
I completely second that resolution as well. It's surprising that has not happened more regularly because soccer is probably the most diverse sport in the world. I don't have any stats to back that phrase up, but if you think about it, soccer is in almost every country. So almost every ethnicity background can partake in this beautiful game. So why are some of like the structural elements of refereeing and managerial stuff not diverse? Because it would make sense to be, since it's such a diverse sport. So I would love to see that. My final resolution kind of has to do with an organization. It's pointed at U.S. Soccer. So U.S. Soccer is like the governing body for the sport of soccer in the United States. Mine is to stick it to the man and force MLS to compete in the Open Cup or strip their Division I sanctioning. I'll break that down really quickly, but I don't think it will happen. But that's why I want it to be a New Year's resolution for them. So the MLS, the top division, which we don't even have a pyramid here in the US, they're sanctioned as the top division. So they are apparently the best, or at least most competitive league in the United States. They made an announcement that said they were taking MLS clubs out of the Open Cup, which is like the FA Cup equivalent here in the United States for all various divisions of soccer, and they're sticking their MLS Next Pro teams instead of like their top tier MLS teams, which is essentially their reserve sides. So the U.S. Soccer, the governing body for the sport in the U.S., like I had said, released a statement saying they denied the request, which is a good thing because when MLS announced this, everyone went crazy because this is just so sucky for them to swing out of the Open Cup and just put their reserves in. This is like one of the oldest sporting competitions in the U.S., and it is so cool because you get amateur clubs. So like Delaware Rising can compete in the Open Cup and then could eventually play against a MLS team, which would be awesome. And it has such a great history. So to see this happening is very disappointing. But that denial of the request from U.S. Soccer, it was like a soft denial. They phrased it in such a way that said, hey, like our recommendation is to deny this, but they haven't done anything specific about it, which is kind of telling the MLS to either comply or to lose Division I sanctioning. That's what I think the message should be. So saying, okay, you're either going to play your first teams in this Open Cup competition, because that is like in the bylaws, that is what requirement is what is required of Division I sanctioned organizations at the top of the pyramid. I always have to put pyramid in quotes because our system is closed. But if they don't do that, get rid of that Division I sanctioning, give it to someone else, because we have other leagues in the U.S. that could fit into that Division I sanctioning level, like the USL Championship. They are an exciting league as well. They have cool stuff going on. They're still a closed system too, unfortunately. But I would love to see U.S. Soccer actually doing something, sanctioning the top league in the U.S. soccer pyramid so that there could be more of an open system structure. If that does happen, could be changed. I won't buy U.S. soccer. I won't buy that they're going to do this, though, even though they could do it, make history, change the structure so that the sport could grow here. But I don't buy it. I don't think they're going to do it because they're babies. U.S. soccer is too afraid of those larger league organizations. So that is sad, but that is my resolution for U.S. soccer. Let's actually make some positive impact in the sport here in the U.S.
You heard it here. They're babies. US soccer are babies. I think it's really intriguing.
Bunch of babies.
My brother mentioned as well in the last episode, if you've not listened to that one, do listen to that one. Very interesting little breakdown about that as well. And I'm sure another episode will dive deep into that. But one thing we are passionate about here in this podcast is opportunities for all at any. Should be a pyramid where that would be in any country, specifically in the US in particular. So that would be really great to kind of see. Fantastic New Year's resolutions. We hope there are people listening in and going, do you know what? let's do something about it. Let's make an impact in the area. Now we're getting into near the end of another show. I want to get your take it or leave it before we get into the nutmegs. What is your take it or leave it? And then I've got mine for you. Let's go.
Speaking of the excitingness of an open system, here's my take it or leave it for you. Wrexham will be in the Premier League in the next 10 years. Take it or leave it.
Oh, I really like that one because if you haven't seen it, you must have seen it already. If our listeners, obviously, the Wrexham documentary on Disney Plus, you've got to see it. You've got to see the way the club is being run at the moment. You've got to see the conversations you have with the players. You've got to see what what they're building, right? What they're building, and it's something that I think will take time. Could I see them coming to the Premier League in 10 years? It's a tough one. I think that's probably where it is. I think in 10 years, Premier League, I'm going to say leave it. And then the reason I say that, I just don't see Premier League in 10 years. Do I see them competing at maybe championship level to go to the Premier League? 100%. I think that would be in 10 years. Do I see them being in the Premier League in 10 years' time? I don't see that right now. I think there more needs to be done. I think once they get up the leagues, once they get into that kind of Championship League One situation, I think that's only then will they'll start thinking about Premier League and getting those players in. At the moment, I think it's great to see behind the scenes and everyone's technically a fan of Wrexham, right? Let's be honest, and we'd love to see him there. But I just think from a logistics perspective, I don't see it happening in the next 10 years, I'm afraid. But Championship for sure. Fighting for Premier League, getting into Premier League in the next 10 years, 100%. But I just don't see them going to Premier League in 10 years.
I'm also going to leave this take. Sorry, Rob McElhenney and Ryan Reynolds, if you're listening in, which I know you are avid fans of Nutmegged. Apologies. I wish I could take it, but I don't think that they fully understand the amount of money that it takes and the amount of like player integration that it takes to get out of League One and then to get out of the Championship. It is just so difficult and requires so much more funding. So you understand, like Ryan Reynolds, super popular, famous dude, makes a lot of monies with his investments as well as a movie star. Rob McElhenney talks about it in the series as well. Like he made a good money with Sonny in Philadelphia, whatever, but he needed movie star money to like make this happen. When you want to get a club to the Premier League, you need like oil magnate or like country level money to make that happen, especially starting almost from scratch with what you're doing with Wrexham. So I don't think in the next 10 years is possible. I would say 20 is a bit more realistic if they can bring in other investors and want to go that route. I think that'd be really cool. But yeah, I'm also going to leave this one. What are you going to have me take or leave, good sir?
So I'm going to give you a context on this one, just so you're kind of clued up. This one's about the Premier League at the moment. My take it or leave it is, so just for context, at the moment, you have Sheffield United on 9 points, you have Burnley on 11 points, you have Luton on 15 points, and on 17th point is Everton on 16 points. My take it or leave it is Luton stay up this Premier League end of the season.
I'm 100% taking that. It was very disappointing to see their captain go into like cardiac arrest 2 or so games ago. So hoping the best for him. But I think that like hurts that bid a little bit because captain, of course, solid player as a center back, but also a good leader on and off the pitch for them. So that hurts. But with that being said, I still take this because I think Luton, they're like sneaky good when they need to be against some of those like lower level teams, but also like to be fairly competitive against some of the bigger boys in the middle of the pack as well. So I like to see that they have that underdog mentality, which makes it a little bit more fun to watch, but also brings some spirit into the players as well. I think if they can, in this January window, bring in a player kind of like their captain that has that leadership ability that's a little bit more sure in the back. So I think like a center back for sure. If they can sign a center back that makes a difference, I can see them absolutely staying up, and I am here for that. I hope that does happen.
That's intriguing because that would mean the one of the following clubs drops down into the relegation. So that would probably be, I mean, let's start from the 13th. Fulham, Crystal Palace, Nottingham Forest, Brentford, and Everton. So by your prediction, by your take it, one of those clubs gets relegated in addition to Burnley and Sheffield United. So who are you thinking would be get?
I would say it probably will be Everton, unfortunately. I do like Everton, but I don't think they have like all of the pieces necessary to stay up as well. If they do have a good January transfer window, like they bring in one or two more players that like fill those needed positions, then I think maybe they do have that enough juice to get up to stay above that relegation line. So I would say it's either them or Brentford, just because Brentford have been like deplorable as of late. I think they've lost like all 5 of their last 5 games. So that hurts a lot. And if you can't break that trend, which can be tough to do, especially if you're leaning toward the bottom of the table, which they are, then I don't see them also getting above that relegation line. I do see Luton in better shape to be able to do that, especially if they make that one key signing.
I like that. That's fair. I think Everton will stay up. That's mine. For me, I'm actually gonna leave that. And I think Luton do go down. I'm with you. I don't want them to see them go down, but I just feel like that those clubs above them, when it comes, they're just battled hardened. When it comes to the end of the season, they've been there. Sean Dyche himself, he's been there, right? I'm sure there's a Sam Allardyce warming up somewhere in the next couple of months to bring out maybe like a Brentford or a Nottingham Forest. Nottingham Forest are flying at the moment, right? Like they're, Nuno's brought them into a new resurgence. So I don't see that happening, but we'll see. I'm with you. It'd be an interesting one to see the end of the season.
I agree. With that being said, let's do some nutmegged of the week to close off this show. This mine is really quickly a topic we've already talked about as well, but it is like the stupidest nutmeg, and it is just so stupid. I will say that it is the stupidest thing I've ever seen in this stupid U.S. soccer landscape.
It's stupid. It's stupid.
It's so stupid. MLS attempting to drop out of the Open Cup, but they continue to say they want to grow the sport of soccer in the United States. That's absolutely garbage. They've had opportunities to help grow it, but they keep having a closed off system and trying to like shove away other leagues from being able to do important things. Like, how about our homegrown talent? Developing them. There's no like full structure for that, which this is U.S. soccer's fault. I could yell about this forever, but I'm sticking with the nutmeg. I'm going to just focus in. I'm going to rein in. I'm not going to rant. It is that the MLS trying to leave the Open Cup is just so stupid of them. And then with that, still trying to say that they're growing the sport. It's absolutely ridiculous. And it's a nutmegged. And then when I nutmeg them, like by kicking the ball to their legs, I also want to just like tackle them like a rugby player and throw them somewhere far away.
There we go. My one is going to be something that happened the other night. We saw that there was the Liverpool versus Newcastle game, 4-2. Good game. Salah came out of nowhere, changed his boots midway through, missed a penalty. Second half comes out, new boots. Apparently, he's come out in the interview, was like, "I'm not going off to the African Cup of Nations on a loss or a missed penalty. I'm going to do something about it." And we know the rest is history, right? 2 goals, second half, great. But it's actually about Klopp. So he wins the game, and he does his customary walk onto the pitch, and he's doing his trying to G up his fans and applauding. I think he claps or does something and drops his wedding ring actually on the ground. And then he's like looking around, and he's just like, you can see him scrambling a bit, trying to figure it out. And then you've got the hilarious bit where the cameraman just points and just says, "There it is," and just kind of factors that I can see your ring there. And he finds the ring, thanks the cameraman, kisses it, puts it back on his finger, and then sort of applauds the fans again. So, it's a funny one because, just think about it. Imagine you lost your wedding band on the pitch in that sort of fashion after celebrating a win. It is quite funny and quite, it is a bit of a nutmeg. But thankfully, he found it, kissed his wedding ring to the cameras, and that was his day and his marriage saved in 1 minute. So there you go.
See, camera guys doing their best out there to save marriages. We love to see it and love it from Klopp. That's like a much more fun nutmeg than mine, so I appreciate that much lighter side of the world of soccer. With that being said, fam, we are out of here. Thank you for joining us for this first episode in 2024, the new year. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Before then, make sure you jump on our Instagram account at Nutmeg Podcast. DM us with your listener questions, your take it, leave it submissions, or any of those wonderful New Year's resolutions that you may have for the world of soccer out there. But hopefully, in the meantime, you're able to get out on a pitch somewhere. If you do, just don't get nutmegged. Peace.
See you later, guys. Have a good one.